Adil Fazal here, market analyst for CFDs.com, a leading spread betting and CFD brokerage. If you'd like to know more about the services and free products, just visit CFDs.com. It's CFDS.com for those that are typing it in. Alternatively, there is the www.cfds.education website as well that provides you with the latest charts and obviously video updates as well, and real-time chart analysis. So that's something that I obviously update and constantly. So certainly visit the website and certainly visit the actual brokerage website as well, and certainly open a trading account there. Okay, folks. So this is a video with regards to a summation of the actual FTSE 100. I'll do a separate one for European indices. This is a wrap up for the FTSE 100. Okay, impressive sell off on the FTSE. FTSE ended down minus 1.5%, down also almost 100 points, made a low of 6,520. The futures currently made a low of, I think, as low as 6,500. So certainly a risk-off scenario, even though the Asian markets was quite stellar overnight. We had the Nikkei up 0.6%, the Shanghai up a whopping 5.5%, and the Hang Seng up by 1% as well. So given the fact that there was talk or backtracking as well, so I'll try and see if I can produce a chronological list of events. So first of all, Asian markets obviously interpreted the news flow as being bullish, because there was a window of opportunity there for Mr. Tsipras and Mr. Varoufakis, who basically the crux of the matter, or summation of it, or conclusion of it, is that they utilised the referendum as a bargaining chip to really push their creditors, because they knew that the creditors understood the referendum as a potential Grexit reality, and given the fact that the actual citizens are not fully aware or fully educated enough to make a decision, or an informed decision, and it will be one based on emotion, which would mean the Eurozone project obviously coming into jeopardy. So as you can see, the Greeks, they certainly have a twisted mentality to a large extent, although one can understand their situation where they feel asphyxiated with regards to the deal itself, because they think that they can never grow. So they believe that austerity will not help, given the fact that there's VAT hikes on hotels and so on and so forth. So one could certainly understand both arguments. Okay, one could certainly understand both arguments. That's something that you'd have to certainly take into consideration. Again, it's a very emotive subject or topic, so one could argue both ways. But from the way in which I see it is that if the Greeks were to leave the Eurozone, what are the alternative options? I mean, one thing I got taught in economics was the concept of an opportunity cost. What's the opportunity cost of Greece leaving the Eurozone? It's too high. It's just way too high. Okay, so from my perspective, it's best if they remain in. They adhere to the deal. Even Mr. Juncker was out last night, and he was mentioning that this deal isn't too bad. Okay, yes, there are struggles, and there will be struggles for the next 2 to 3 years, but after that things will get better. You can't ask for things to get better instantaneously when you've obviously defaulted on your debt, and the debt is spiraling out of control, and you need reforms and so on and so forth. You can't expect something without reform, without short-term pain, long-term gain. Okay, and that's the philosophy that I would like to adhere to. So obviously the Greeks can't live in their luxurious lifestyles, not paying any tax, etc. Even though I'm stereotyping here, but that does seem to be the majority. Otherwise the tax receipts would have come in, and the books certainly would have been more obviously healthy. So that's the situation in Greece right now. Our job really as traders is not to debate either side. We just react, okay, and that's what we're trying to do. Now, my understanding, Asian markets being higher overnight should be a risk on opportunity. The actual economic data that came out today, I mean, I've been copying. That's what I generally tend to do. I tend to save all the economic data and the news headlines. And overall, UK GDP came out in line. Business investment was actually up, so that was good news. Okay, that was up quarter on quarter, year on year. So business investment being up is bullish. Okay, from my understanding. The index of services slightly came in lower than expected quarter on month, but the 3 month actually came out in line. So overall, I mean, given the fact that Lloyd's business barometer came out in line, and also we had UK GFK consumer confidence actually come out higher than expected. I mean, it's almost triple what was expected. So again, that was good. Eurozone data came out in line. German data actually came out better in terms of unemployment change. Consumer spending came out slightly weak in France, but German retail sales came out much better than expected. came in at 0.5 when the expectation was 0%. So therefore bullish. Okay, so now we've got a slightly different scenario here. So latest headlines that are coming out now is Greece still intends to pay the IMF. Okay, so contrary to rumours, Greece intends to pay the IMF. So that certainly is good news, and that certainly leaves the situation open to a bullish scenario. Okay, so if they tend to pay the IMF, then that's obviously keeping them within the confines of discussion, so that should certainly bode well. Okay, so basically we have the situation here. So economic data obviously came out better than expected. US data, consumer confidence obviously came out better than expected. So you have strong data, you have Asian markets higher, and that generally is sufficient enough to neutralize any bearish effects from the US markets being flushed overnight. Now, especially with regards to US markets, the S&P 500 has actually hit its 200 MA. So the US markets were certainly into a support zone as well. So if I go to the S&P 500, as you can see there, we've closed the gap on a daily basis. And if I go to the daily chart here, and you can see that we are into one gap fill support, and number two, we're into the 200 MA support as well. Okay, so not one argument but two. So as you can see here, 200 MA. So therefore the S&P 500 was obviously into support. So therefore that again would support the thesis that European markets were looking to potentially propel higher. Obviously that wasn't the case. Okay, so the S&P has been weak from the outset. Okay, now in terms of the Greek situation, the Greek negotiations, yes, there was a bill that there was news that the the Germans were certainly open to negotiations, so the tone of rhetoric was starting to change to positive. They were willing to re-analyze the Juncker proposal, which was sent again, and then obviously they were able to put forth their proposal as well. Okay. So Mr. Norton, he says Greece is playing poker, not using game theory. So childish. Okay, so obviously that certainly seems to be the situation at present. So this game theory certainly is working backwards or in reverse, from my understanding. Anyway, so let's look at the markets from a technical perspective now. Given the fact that there was a lifeline, the Greeks obviously are going to be paying the loan itself, so that again is interpreted as being bullish news from my perspective. It means that the talks will remain open. There's going to be a potential solution. They're working on a solution, etc., etc. Those were the headlines that were coming out today. Until the very last hour, Ms. Merkel obviously stated that she would not be willing to negotiate prior to a referendum. Obviously, that caused a risk-off scenario, which I didn't expect. Again, that's an exogenous variable event. But having said that, that news has been negated with regards to Greeks obviously paying the actual loan, or paying the IMF, and obviously avoiding a potential default. So that again, that certainly leaves open the room for negotiation. So therefore, it's a bullish scenario. Okay, so the FTSE 100 now. Let's bring up the charts of the FTSE 100. First of all, before I start, I just need to share the FTSE volatility index. The volatility index is actually slap bang into resistance. So if this volatility index is into resistance, that means the FTSE 100 is actually into support, folks. Okay, so always bear that in mind. So if I bring up the FTSE 100 index now, if I look at the weekly chart of the FTSE 100, you'll see that there's massive amounts of support, or humongous levels of support in this area. Obama says Greece is one of substantial concern. So again, Mr. Obama is concerned. So again, that should highlight their plight and certainly potentially speed things, because obviously it's starting to hurt the US markets now as well, given the fact that the S&P is into its 200 MA. Okay, so FTSE 100 horizontal support seen at 6568. Horizontal support is seen at 6531. Support is seen at 6500. So multiple levels of support on the weekly chart. Daily chart of the FTSE 100. Let's bring that up and have a look. Okay, so daily chart of the FTSE 100, you can see here horizontal levels of support, historically, again support. We did have this falling contracting wedge pattern, but the market failed to hold that key trend line. So now we're back into this zone here. So again, support around this 6520, 6500 region. If that fails, then obviously 6400 opens up, potentially down to 6300 as well. So certainly will be one hell of a sharp sell-off, and a risk-off scenario will certainly ensue very, very quickly. So this certainly does not bode well going forward. So it's going to draw this trend line in for now, because this is your key trend line, okay, with regards to the FTSE 100. So lower diagonal potential, lower diagonal support. Okay, the 60-minute chart now, see if we can decipher that, given the fact that the FTSE, just need to make you aware, is currently trading at 6515 now after hours. So certainly is bullish, or should we say bearish, shall we say. Okay, so lower lows, lower highs thus far. The market obviously flushed quite substantially. Now, one of the other reasons why the actual oil FTSE itself was under immense pressure was because of the potential Iranian deal, and obviously that means increased supply of oil, and that obviously puts the commodities sector certainly under immense strain. Okay, so the FTSE itself certainly remains into lower lows and lower highs, and the actual chart itself, the 10-minute chart, we were expecting, or I did expect, an inverted head and shoulders to go ahead and close the gap above. Obviously that failed, and for now we have 6540 as potential support, although the futures currently are pointing to 6500, 6510. Obviously the FTSE itself is falling. So it'll be interesting to see where the cash market opens tomorrow. So if I just take the pivot low from here, connect it to the pivot low there. So if you do go low, I mean 6500 certainly is a potential support zone for the FTSE 100. So that should be very interesting. Although this morning I did expect this expanding wedge type pattern here to obviously trigger off a move higher, obviously up to 6630 support. But given the unfolding events in Greece and the uncertainty, etc., that certainly has kept the FTSE at bay, which is quite interesting. Okay, which is interesting. So again, keep an eye out with regards to the FTSE at 6500 support. We currently are already there in the futures market, so again that certainly makes things interesting. Okay, but bear in mind, folks, the FTSE itself, or should we say the S&P itself, is currently into 200 MA support, which means the FTSE should find support. Now the weekly chart of the actual FTSE, or weekly FTSE 250 itself, as you can see, has broken out the bullish channel. The daily chart of the FTSE 250, let's observe. Okay, so into horizontal support as well with regards to the FTSE 250. Also, the FTSE All Share has started to flush lower, so again that's not a good sign from a trading perspective, or a trader who wants to go long. Although we do have potential previous support or previous resistance equals support around this region here on the FTSE 100 itself. So again, that is going to be a level that we're going to watch on the FTSE All Share. So again, certainly a strong argument here for the FTSE to bounce, okay, with regards to the market itself. So again, we'll expect a potential, look for a potential bounce on the FTSE 100 itself. Okay, so the FTSE 250 and FTSE 100 certainly have arguments for a potential move higher, along with the FTSE All Share. So therefore my bias certainly would remain up, especially with regards to the S&P 500 into its 200 MA support. Okay folks, like I said, please be sure to check out the website cfds.com for your brokerage and trading needs. Okay, and also visit the educational website where I post real-time charts and video updates for you all to keep abreast and on top of the market. Okay folks, goodbye now.